about the wash up in 2025. Over 170 cities in New South Wales in 2025 got a rezone, allowing 6 stories within 400 metres of town centres. We're going to tell you about the wash up in 2025, what we've seen as a result. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Burgio Mark Novak, the great New South Wales rebuild, taking many city suburbs from a height limit of 3 stories up to 6 stories. I know for where we are on the northern beaches, especially DY, that is massive news and could have a massive impact. There's nearly 10,000 units in DY. There's probably 10. That's another 1,000 unit blocks, which now a lot of owners are sitting down going, hang on, we've got a 3-story unit block. We can now do six stories. What does that mean for me? How can they? A lot of the questions we're getting inundated by, it's sort of 2 parts. It's from developers wanting us to find blocks that are suitable, because not every block is suitable. And then also a lot of owners saying, hey, there's 6 of us in the unit block, there's 10 of us in the unit block. How can we cash in? How can we cash in big? But I think even before we get to that, let's talk about the actual change itself. And we're 6 months into it, Mark. What have you thought you would have seen that you haven't seen, and any surprises?
I thought there was going to be a massive change with that sort of allowance. I thought so many people, it would tip the developments to be from undevelopable to developable, and in some cases it has. But I thought there would have been a rush in council with applications to go to the 6 stories, and I thought we'd have some DA approvals, a lot of DA approvals, and some builders going, yippee, let's go, and some sellers, some landowners going, that awesome, how good's that? We're out now. Let's go.
I think the reason I could say that hasn't happened is we've been behind the scenes with the owners of a unit block trying to get an agreement to go down the path to even agree to speak to a developer, not agree on plans, not agree on a town planner, not agree on a design, to lodge a DA. Think how many agreements there need to be. Let's say 50 agreements. And it's very difficult to get, say, 10 owners agree to use the same agent to speak to one developer. So when we've had we've had a deal where 9 out of 10 owners basically came to the office ready to sign the paper, and it still didn't go ahead. It's very difficult to get everyone to agree.
It's an education process, and they need to be hungry, or they need to have that appetite in order to educate themselves, and then in order to accommodate a developer and learn about pricing and all that sort of stuff. And I find that everyone's on a different wavelength, and everyone's some people are from the artistic background, some people are from a numbers background. So it's not everyone's on that same wavelength when selling these small unit blocks to make them 6 stories. If you've just tuned in, that's what we're talking about. And I think that as soon as people hear developer, they think money bags. They think 2x, they think 3x of their property value. So, and you can understand that, because your association with this developer is he's got, he's sitting in a nightclub with fancy bottles of champagne around him, and he's a cool cat. These guys, and I've met all of them. They're super hardworking. They're conservative, and a lot of them have been bankrupt over the years. It's a really risky business. So my point is, it's all numbers. And at the moment, the numbers, because the Minns government did a fantastic job at coming along and saying, right, 170 cities in New South Wales within 400 metres of R3, we're going to allow R3 within 400 metres city centre, we're going to allow 6 stories. And we all just went, as agents, we went, that's big. Wow. But the reality is very different.
Yes, and I think I lost my wavelength, but it was based. And where a lot of, so you're saying they associate with like the fancy life, the developer, but they also associate it with what they see on Channel 7. You don't hear, developer bought a unit block for $5 million and made $500,000. Every owner made an extra 20%. You only hear owners sold their home for $10 million when it's worth $1 million. They're building 1,000 units. So
Yeah.
it is a very small,
The fortunate few.
The fortunate few, where the reality is most development sites run on maybe 20%, 15%
Yeah.
profit if they make profit. And
Yeah.
that could be, say, only half of them, or 60% make profit, especially
Yeah.
the last. I think we've seen a lot of builders, developers go bankrupt just with the transition of cost pricing going up through COVID. Because you can
Well, it's
imagine
doubled. It's
it's
doubled. You
double.
know, it's gone from 350 to build a box to 650, 700 to build a box.
Yeah.
Whether that's a one, 2, or 3 bedroom box, it's bloody expensive to build.
Yes. And if you bought a site saying I'm buying that land for, say, 4 million, I'm building for 4, and at today's market they'll sell at X, and if that build cost shot up to 8, the prices have gone up, but not that fast. Like material prices effectively went up overnight, but sale
Yep.
prices don't. So a lot of people got stung there. And then even right now with the new height changes, I think, and we always, when we have the meetings with owners, they all say, well, what should we expect to sell for? Like, what is the upshot to sell to a developer? And it honestly comes down to what it sounds so cliche, but it's like, what are you happy with? Like, for someone who was about to go to market, and let's say their unit was worth 900 to $1 million, and you're getting a guaranteed 1.2 from a developer, an extra 20%. That sounds amazing, because you could have sold for 900 if you went to market, compared to the 80-year-old who's owned it forever, and their attitude is, I want to go out in a box from this apartment. 20% is not going to move them.
But don't forget, the amount of time people are in a property, the average time people are in a property in Sydney is about 10 years. So in any year, there's 1 out of 10 people that are willing to do a deal
Yeah.
or to sell. They're in a position. The other 9 are not in that zone. So what are you going to pay to compel those people, those that are not in the zone, to sell in a unit block? To sell, well, you know, is it going to be 10% more than the current value? Definitely not. That's not compelling enough. Is it going to be double? Yes, I'll probably go on that. If it's 20% more, no, not really keen. So there's actually, I'd love to know, you know, scientifically what that number is that would compel people not wanting to sell. And I wouldn't be putting it at 10 or 20%. I think it's a lot more. Now, when you look at building costs of 700 grand for a unit, how much profit do you need if you're going to spend that? If you're a developer, if I'm going to bang out 700 grand for 10 units, that's 7 million. And then if I don't want to make 1 million profit. I want to, as a developer, I want more than that. Then I've got to pay land on top. So whatever the land price is, whatever the profit price is for a developer, add that to your 700 grand. Now, to sell a box over $1 million or 1.2 million bucks, sell you 1, 2, or 3 bedroom unit in Sydney, you got to be in a good suburb.
And I'd love to, you said about like I'd love to know a scientific study where I find when people talk about property prices, it's a little bit like gambling, where the money doesn't feel real. So when someone says, oh, I wouldn't do it for 30% above my unit price, to a lot of people, that's 300 grand. That could be nearly a decade's of work. and
Yeah,
all you've
it's
got to do is
savings.
move
Yeah,
and you've got to move from one property to you could move next door. So you wouldn't
Yep.
do that for 10 years labor. And it's like if you had them the bag of cash in front of them, fuck oath they would move. But
yeah.
when it's to do with the property values and pricing,
It's
it's
true,
like,
isn't
no,
it?
it's got to be double. It's going to be 600
Yeah,
grand for me to move
yeah,
next door. It's like some people would do it for $1,000, but that psychology of it is very, very interesting. But I
yeah.
think what we may start to see a shift in, instead of it being cash, maybe people look to get property back in, because effectively for a lot of people, if you sell it for more, you're paying more in tax. So you say you want 30%, but you only end up with 15%. But if you can trade in a 1960s one bedroom for a 2025 two bedroom, there could be some good structured deals that way.
It's good chat. So, guys and girls, the wash up after the Mins state government has introduced the 170 city 6-story heights. The wash up, we're in Feb, March, April, May, June, July. Like it's almost 9 months, Burge.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen one application through our Northern Beaches Council that has been where the building has started off the back of this. So there's been a lot of talk, a lot of concern, a lot of excitement, but the reality,
No change
not
yet.
really. Nah.
We'll see. All
All
good.
right.
We'll end on that
Has-
positive note.
Well,
Well,
yeah, you know,
okay.
it's you
Some
know,
people are
look,
scary.
maybe he's undershot it. Maybe he should have allowed further density in order to allow for the uplift in the property prices. You
Okay.
know,
So just
in
on that,
the building prices.
okay, so on that, I've done the numbers, especially in DY, we've done the numbers, and effectively, if your land isn't if your block isn't larger than 1,000 square meters with less than 10 apartments on it, ideally 10 one bedrooms. If it's all 10
Yes.
two bedrooms, it's not feasible to buy everyone out
Yeah.
to build. So as much as 6-story sounds big,
Yeah.
I reckon 80%, think of all most unit blocks have more than 8 to 10 units in them, and they're
Yeah.
typically more than one bedrooms. So it's not feasible to buy them out. So
No.
if they want to
Unless
change,
if you get over 75 million in the building with building costs and land costs, capital cost, then you can apply for a 30% uplift. But that's hard. That's
then you got
hard.
to get we are seeing owners struggle to get 10 people to agree, let
That's
alone
right.
let's get 75 people to agree, so it's a larger site.
Just one stuffs
So
it. Yeah.
I don't know if the Mins government, and I don't see how, if this is where you can sort of get into the politics. Was this a big splash to make it look like they did something, but they know in reality nothing would happen? Because the figures are not that hard to run if it's feasible to knock down a 3-4 story building to build a 6-story building. We did it in our
Yes.
first couple of meetings and realized when someone calls me and they go, we got 20 units on this 1,000 square meters, unfortunately not feasible. So, or do they have other suburbs in mind outside of Northern Beaches where there could be a lot of DYs, but they're all single level homes? They've been R3 zoning for a long time and no one's ever bothered to develop it. And this is that extra push. So we may not have been that target suburb for this change, even though we got included.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, because of 90% of the existing blocks are not feasible to redevelop in DY. So we'll see.
And this is going across Manly. It's going across Mona Vale, French's Forest, a lot of areas that we're learning about. So there you go, guys. That's our experience in 2025 with the LMR that we're seeing. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
There, Boots.
Bye.
Bye.